Hello investors and welcome back to Just for Any Stocks. During this video I want to talk about the Q2 earnings call for Proterra, and yes, this was their first one. How did it go? What are my thoughts? And I want to recap for those of you that weren't able to join the call. It was about 18 minutes long. The CEO Jake spoke, then he turned it over to the CFO Amy, and then they left about 20 minutes for Q&A. So let's go through these four key highlights. The record revenue that was set, and then the gross margin. So yes, record revenue. They still have 46% of the way to go. So they haven't accomplished 54% of their revenue target for the end of the year. So while they did have record revenue, I would like to see them a little further than 46%. So might not have taken off great expectations. You know, of course, you want to try and beat these expectations, exceed them. So while it was better than last year, they still have room to run on accomplishing this overall revenue, and they still believe they can get it done. The cost of goods sold was incredibly high, which basically matched what they had gotten for revenue. There was also an announcement for the LG Energy Partnership securing batteries through 2028. Most prominent supply chain risk, which I covered during one of my videos about 4 months ago, 3-4 months ago, when this company was ACTC, and they secured these dedicated product lines here in the United States, and that's a big deal, especially with some regulation coming up with having to produce at least 75% of the vehicle here in the United States. So that helps them, gives them a competitive edge. Expanded partnerships. Now, this is going to take 1 to 2 years of development before you'll see revenues with high volume supply contracts. 7 of these relationships are in supply contracts. 8 of the partnerships are receiving battery packs by the end of Q2. Only 1 is in serial production today, and more will enter serial production later this year. 3 to 4 will enter serial production next year, and the rest in 2023. Partnerships have doubled in the last year, so we still have a long way to go before we see this serial production ramp up, but having 10 partnerships just shows how diverse the batteries are and what they're doing to really grow the business. Lastly, on the last point, the business reaffirmed their revenue guidance of $246 million. Like I said, they've accomplished $113 million. They still have 54% of the way to go, but they're saying they can do it. So then the call was turned over to Amy, where she talked about some of the things that could have been done differently around OPEX and gross margin expansion to get better cost efficiency out of the business. And slower parts delivery constrained the production line. COVID was, an issue with scheduling. The LA battery factory, the startup efficiencies and the scrap that happened there with the automation and running a new automated facility, they believe those scrap levels are going to return to normal. They know there's a second wave of COVID coming, and they know they'll have to deal with some additional supply chain issues, but there were some part expediting things happening and efficiencies with labor, where labor can only be measured by efficiency if they have what they need at the time of production that they need it. And these production cycles are not short. So you can imagine this production cycle getting interrupted over a long period of time, multiple times. So clearing up these disruptions, there was 2 things that I think are a good note for Q3. So Q3, there was already in July a $14 million accounts receivable payment received that missed the June deadline. So it was a little delayed, but that's good for Q3, $14 million payment. There was a $10 million payment made in Q2 or Q1, Q2 for raw material supplies that included, securing enough batteries to protect the business from supply chain interruptions. So I didn't mind hearing about that, but will strengthen Q3 financial result. So they ended the quarter with $750 million in cash. They're still working towards being cash flow positive on or before 2025. OPEX is increasing, and there's 3 things that they said that have happened in the last several months, and that's higher clarity on the cell technology developments. So R&D spend with technology, meeting with the OEMs and getting clarity as to what they need. So that whole development process that takes 1 to 2 years as they have these 10 partnerships with the OEMs, raising more capital, and they felt like since they raised more capital that there was more capital expenditure to be spent, and this could broaden their offerings, increase integration capabilities, and expand their geographical reach, and build out additional infrastructure for compliance and regulatory service. So I'm excited about hearing about that infrastructure that's going to get built out. And they spent some time talking about the infrastructure bill and how that's broken down and what money might help to energize this category, this EV space. 800 million over 5 years for transit, 3.5 to 5 billion for school buses, 2.25 billion for port equipment, referencing Taylor, that new partnership that they created there, and 7.5 billion for charging infrastructure and airport shuttle buses, things of that nature. They say with the competitors, they have a competitive advantage with this partnership with LG once again, and that policy, the USMCA battery cells, which pretty much says that you have to build the majority of this stuff in the United States. And they talked about the rumors or the misinformation that was out there that I've discussed in my channel. I've covered PTRA, ACTC exhaustively in this channel. So if you haven't seen those videos, go back and check them out. I think this really pulls together everything that I've been saying since the beginning. Secure that battery supply. I said that at the beginning, but I was saying that they needed to fix the misinformation. They've been hitting everything I believe they need to do to be successful. So they're restructuring the business to give some stronger oversight. So there's now 3 business segments. And I think we're going to continue to see more out of Proterra and its leadership and management team. Those were my thoughts on the investor presentation. Tell me what your thoughts were in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.